In this screencast, we're going to look at the top 15 shortcuts for IntelliJ IDEA in no particular order. Let's start with the most well-known. This keyboard shortcut can be used to fix just about anything, Alt and Enter. When we see an error in our code, if we place the cursor on the error and press Alt and Enter, we get a list of suggested fixes for the problem. For example, here we can change the declared type. We can also use Alt and Enter where we see warnings and suggestions. Pressing Alt and Enter here allows us to accept the suggestion for simplifying the code. We can use Alt and Enter even on code that doesn't have an error, warning or suggestion. Here there are a number of actions we could take. For example, removing the redundant types. On lambda expressions, we can use Alt and Enter to change the code to use longer or shorter forms according to our preference. Alt and Enter can fix warnings from inspections like this one, which suggests we use a method reference instead of a lambda expression. Even if the inspections are not set to warn us, we can still see and accept suggestions by pressing Alt and Enter in the right place. One of my favourite uses of Alt and Enter is to add a static import to simplify the code. You don't want to use the mouse when navigating between suggestions, so use F2 to jump to the next error, warning or suggestion. Let's look at the previous example again, but this time we'll use F2 to jump to the next thing that needs attention, and then press Alt and Enter to fix it up. We don't need the mouse to open tool windows either. Command and 1 on the Mac or Alt and 1 on Windows opens the project window. So if you usually have the code editor taking up the full screen, pressing Command 1 or Alt 1 will open up the project window and put the focus in there. You can navigate the tree using the arrow keys and search by typing. To put the focus back on the editor, press Escape. Pressing Escape will put you back in the editor so you can return to the code. In fact, Escape is useful for closing any pop-up without applying changes. The project window may not be your best way to navigate the code. We can view the most recently opened files using Command and E or Ctrl and E. Using Command E or Ctrl E pops up the Recent Files box, which you can navigate using arrow keys. We can also open tool windows from here, including ones that don't have keyboard shortcuts. Like any window in IntelliJ IDEA, we can search for something specific in here by typing. We often want to navigate the code from within the code. With Command B or Ctrl+B in Windows, we can go to the declaration of a symbol. For example, pressing Command B on a field will take the cursor to the field declaration. Pressing Command B on a class name will take us to the class file. If we press Alt, Command and B, or Ctrl, Alt and B in Windows, we can navigate to an implementation instead. Often we want to find where something is used. Alt and F7 will show us all the places something is used. If, for example, we press Alt and F7 on this interface name, the search window will show all the places the interface is used, whether it's a field declaration or it's a class that implements this interface. We can run anything from anywhere by pressing the Ctrl key twice. No matter where we are in the IDE or which file is open, if we double-tap Control, the Run Anything window opens. By default, this shows a list of recently run configurations, but we can also type the name of something to run to search for other run configurations. We can select increasing or decreasing sections of code near the cursor with Alt and Up or Down on the Mac and Ctrl+W or Ctrl+Shift+W on Windows. See how, by using Extend Selection, IntelliJ IDEA automatically selects the next valid expression in increasing sections. Alt and Down, or Ctrl+Shift+W, will decrease the selection again via valid Java blocks, all the way back to the cursor. Adding a comment is easy with Command and Slash, or Control and Slash on Windows. Pressing Command and / anywhere on the line will comment out this line with a line comment. Pressing the same shortcut will uncomment the line if it's already commented. If we select this whole block, we can use Alt, Command and / or Shift, Control and / to add a block comment. Pressing this shortcut again will remove the block comment. Complete current statement is one of the most useful shortcuts while coding. This is Shift, Command and Enter on the Mac and Shift, Control and Enter for Windows. If, like me, you're in the habit of using complete current statement while you're coding, most of the time it will simply add a semicolon to the end of your code, which can be useful, but it works for more complex code. For example, if you press Shift, Command and Enter when you're writing a for loop, IntelliJ IDEA will add the curly braces and place your cursor in the correct place. In an if statement, it can add the parentheses and curly braces, and again place your cursor in the correct spot. Even if the IDE doesn't need to add any more code to finish your statement, it's useful to use this shortcut to put the cursor where you need it next. We can easily format the current file to the project standards using Alt, Command and L, or Ctrl, Alt and L. This can be set to either just format the lines that have changed in this file, for example this one. Formatting can even add curly braces if this is required by our standards. If we want to specify a different scope to format, we can press Alt, Shift, Command and L, or Shift, Ctrl, Alt and L, and select, for example, to reformat the whole file. Most of the refactorings in IntelliJ IDEA have their own shortcuts, but you can access all of them with one shortcut, Ctrl+T on a Mac, or Shift, Ctrl, Alt and T on Windows. When we press this shortcut on a symbol or selection, we are shown the refactoring options available to us. We can select one with the arrow keys and enter, or we can use the number on the left of the refactoring to select it. If we press 5 here, we'll extract this as a constant. Ctrl and T also shows us the keyboard shortcut for this specific refactoring if it exists. You don't have to remember all these shortcuts. Use Find Action, which is Shift, Command and A for Mac and Shift, Ctrl and A for Windows. Pressing this lets you search for any action in IntelliJ IDEA. The drop-down will show you not only the actions, but also the shortcut so that we can learn this shortcut and practice it. Find Action will let us search for actions, of course, but also settings so we can change settings directly from here. We can also search for and open tool windows. The ultimate shortcut is to search everywhere. Double pressing the Shift key opens a search box that lets us look for anything. Like Find Action, we can use it for changing settings. By default, the search box shows us the recent files, so we can use this instead of Command-E. If we type something to look for, we can see results from classes, files, symbols, and actions. Search Everywhere also supports commands. So, for example, we can search for settings for appearance. So there are your top 15 IntelliJ IDEA shortcuts. Thanks for watching.